how are you? How are you doing today? This week we are going to look at the design process. If you remember last week we did something about technology and engineering. I will quickly review that with you. What do you mean by technology? Technology can be simple as using a stick to lift something from the floor. It's not about electronics alone, but everything that makes our life easy is technology. And the process of doing that is what we call engineering. This week we are going to look at another way of coming about our technology, and that is design process. What are the processes involved in designing the technology? And that is the lesson 2 we are going to look at this week. We are starting with the exploration 1, and we'll be able to what are the processes that are involved in designing the technology we use every day. The objectives of this lesson are: number 1, to develop an understanding of how problems are identified and possible solutions are evaluated. Ask questions about an engineering problem related to a hiking trail. Use this to develop engineering solutions based on relevant criteria. Those are the objectives that we are going to look at. See this picture. You can see the hikers climbing a hill. But there are so many problems here. As you know that we use technology to solve problems, to overcome any problem. And this is going to be the template, the model of the problem we are going to be looking at in this lesson. From this picture, climbing this hill is very, very difficult. But if we are looking at it as scientists, we have to identify the problem and how to solve the problems of climbing this hill. Because climbing this is very, very difficult. And we are going to make use of the technology and everything that we know about technology to solve the problem. Number 1, identifying a problem. You are a ranger walking in your park. As you get closer to high top hill, it's getting harder to walk uphill. Why? Because it's difficult. You have to identify the problem. Why is it difficult to climb? Number 2, solve a problem. How could you solve this problem? How could you make climbing this hill very, very easy for you? We have to think about that. Number 3, defining a problem. Deep trench. There is a deep trench worn in the path. What is the cause of this problem? What can we do to solve this problem? We have to think about that also. Then number 4, looking at that picture and the location of the arrow, you have something like loose soil there. Some of the soil on the path seems to be washed away by erosion. Those are the things that we have to look at before designing any solution to a problem. We have to identify the problem, understand the problem, and see how we can go out solving the problem. You have to think about a good solution and how the solution will look like. What would you need to do before you start to build? Before you start to repair the path, what do you need to do before you start building? You have to ask these questions. What are some things that would limit your design? If you come up with a solution, what are the things that would be like problem, that would be problem of designing your solution? And lastly, how would you know if your solution was successful? The questions we need to ask ourselves. It's on in details. Once you have a problem, you need to learn more about it before you can get started on a solution. If you don't understand the problem, how are you going to bring about the solution? If you don't understand the question, how are you going to answer it? So we have to understand the problem very well. Then let's continue with the problem of building or repairing a path up the steep high top hill in the park. What would you want to know before you started to design the path? You might want to know about the following, especially the weather, the topography, that is the shape of the land. This will really help a lot in designing the place. Asking questions in designing solution is very important. Learning more about the topic is the best way to make good decisions about what you want to do. This additional knowledge helps you to define the criteria you will use and also determine any constraint. And that will take us to the question of what is a constraint. Very easy. A constraint is something that limits, that stop what you are trying to do. You have good ideas, you want to do this one, but there are some things that can be like problem that might want to stop you. We call them constraints. Example, money to spend. You're talking about the money, there's not enough money, materials, space to build, or time to finish. All these ones are constraints. Then we have the criteria. What do we mean by criteria? Are things that design needs to do in order to be successful. Simply put, is the requirement for your solution. And these are to be well defined to know what you are going to do to solve the problem. A constraint is an absolute limit on possible solution. Number one, the cost. 2, time to finish. 3, availability of materials. A limit on what is possible. And also the length of the path affects cost. So it's also a constraint. We can have as many as possible, but we have to identify the constraints and also the criteria. Criteria are the desirable features of a solution, the part of your solution, the requirements that is being saved, that anybody that is climbing the hill must be safe, not to be harmed or injured. Then the reduction of erosion. Those are the 2 criteria we are going to look at in this problem. Now, this climbing the hill must be safe, and also the erosion must be stopped. This is an example of a map. What do you see? Studying a map on the park where you want to build the path is a great way to gather additional information to determine what criteria you will use and any constraints there are. And in this map, it shows the steep part of the high top hill where the path will be built or repaired. The topographic lines, that is the contours, show the hills and flat areas. The color key shows plants. Icons show the physical features of the park, such as picnic areas and restrooms. Take a close look at it very well. It gives the detail of the area. And the background. What are you supposed to do? To solve a problem, it is often helpful to do background research. To see what is already known, you have to do your research about the place, what people have done in the past, what worked for them that you might want to try and follow also. And if the people using the solution ran into problems, or if some things have changed, you probably want to try something else. So this will really help a lot to know what has been done in the past and what you can do also better in order to achieve a good solution. The problem you are researching is how to design and make or modify a path in the park that will be safe and minimize erosion. That is the problem we are researching about. What is erosion? Erosion happens when wind and rain carry the soil away. And the more the erosion, the more the trench, the deep trench, make it difficult for people to climb. What types of things do you think previous builders discovered? You have to do that research and see what other people discovered also. They may have figured out the best materials to use. Also, the best way to stay within budget, that is not overshoot the cost. And also, which plants prevent erosion? From the picture, we can see plants. Plants can be used to prevent erosion, that is the washing away of soil. Because their roots hold soil in place, plants that are native to the area are usually the best. So part of solving the problem is planting plants so that the soil will not be washed away. The second picture shows another solution by adding some large rocks to the area around the path. This can increase drainage and reduce erosion by holding soil in place. So it prevents the washing away of the soil too. These are the solutions to the area. And another way from the picture is by using straw bundles or mulch, which to help prevent erosion. This keeps the soil moist, that is wet. And wet soil doesn't move easily compared to dry soil. Another way is to use some form of barrier. It's also a good way to prevent soil erosion, as we can see from the picture. Yeah. Looking at this picture also, if you build a wall, you also need to design a way for rainfall to drain away. So that's the purpose of building a drainage. A drainage channel allows the water to flow down the hill where you want it to, instead of pulling behind the wall. After you have done this, the next level is brainstorming. Brainstorming is done by 2 or more people, where you bring ideas together, put your heads together. Brainstorming, once you have decided on a problem to solve, it is important to gather as many ideas as possible before deciding how you will go about solving the problem. And this process is what we call brainstorming. When you brainstorm, you collect as many different ideas as you can. No matter how good you are, this technique is especially useful when working with a group of people. So, how do we go about brainstorming? See the children in this picture. You can see one of the students writing on the whiteboard. So, and others thinking, bringing up ideas. This is what we call brainstorming. Brainstorming with a group is a way to quickly come up with and evaluate several ideas. Number 1, first, generate as many ideas as you can in 5 to 10 minutes. Don't allow that to take much of your time. Number 2, listen to everyone's ideas without judging, without complaining. Number 3, select one person to serve as the recorder, like we saw in the picture, the students writing on the whiteboard. And the whiteboard is very, very important. Using a whiteboard everyone can see is very helpful. Number 5, discuss the ideas as a group, all the ideas together, discuss all the ideas one by one as a group, and after that give each person a chance to explain what they meant. Maybe somebody gave an idea and you don't understand. The person can be given a chance to explain what it means by that. And after all ideas are discussed, vote whether to keep them or discuss them. That is, whether to take it or not to take it. The next, narrow the list to 2 or 3 ideas. You might have about 15 ideas. Make sure that is you are left with 2 or 3 ideas. Discuss them in depth. And finally, choose the idea you want to develop. This is in brainstorming. And language smart background research. Learning the details of a project through research is a good first step. You have to do the research. After that, then the brainstorming. Also use several sources to conduct some brief research on the design solutions